Right then, this is peg 16 and I'm on the second day of our 2012 trip. First time I fished this swim. We've got the left hand rod just down in this corner here, not so tight to the snags but just off them in 11 foot. Nice hard patch down there. That's done me a 38 common this morning. The second rod on the left is right tight into that far margin over there where there's some snags, and that one is around about 5 or 6 foot, nice and hard. Apparently it's a good spot for the big fish, does 60s regularly. And the third rod, now this rod I had a 56 common off yesterday, and that's out right in open water on the bars where I found a nice spot around about 14 foot, nice and hard. There was a few fish showing there when I first got in the swim, and that one rattled off yesterday afternoon with a nice big one on the end. And the right hand rod, this is the so-called banker rod. This is the one everybody's been telling me it's going to be doing me a fish a day. It hasn't done me a fish yet, but that's tight to the Brazil tree, or what they call a Brazil tree. It isn't actually a Brazil tree. That's that snag that's basically right in front of us there. This side of it is mine, which is peg 16, and then the other side is peg 17, where Paul Hudson is at the moment. Paul himself's had a couple of fish during the course of the last couple of days, up to mid-40s. Now the right hand swim, right hand side I should say of this swim, is where Derek is, and so far Derek has had himself a couple of nice fish. He's had a 49-14 this morning, which came on his left hand rod, which is just behind that island there that's in the middle of the shot. He had that in 14 foot of water, not so tight to the far bank, not amongst the snags, but in a channel that's at the back there. And then his second from left rod, that's just behind that island that's in the shot now, just off those little snags there. That hasn't done him a fish yet. And then his third rod is this one, which you can probably just see the marker that's just in front of the islands. That's in about 14 foot. Now that did him a 43 on the first night. And then his right hand rod is just down this margin here. I think he's got about 7-8 foot there. Nice little spot. But we're only on day 2. We've only just started the trip really. We've got 5 nights left, and already we've had 4 nice fish. The smallest a 38 common and the biggest a 56 common, so we're relatively happy with that so far. And fingers crossed we're going to get something a bit bigger. What we're doing here today is we're putting a nice carpet feed of this mixed particle, which is basically a bit of red band, a bit of hemp, groats, maize, tares, all sorts of bits and pieces, as well as some tigers, as you can see. We buy that from Hafes and bring it to the bank and cook it up ourselves whilst we're here, make it nice and fresh. And then on top of that we've got the boilies, and for this trip we've got some 20mm. These are the Nash Scopex squids. Gary Bays has made these for us, nice and fresh, freezer baits. It's a freezer on site that you can keep your gear in and stuff, and all we do is we hang up in the air drying sacks, and that preserves them for the week. Quantity wise, what we're doing is we put a nice liberal spread of the particles out, probably about 2 parts of the particle to around about 1 part of the boilie. At the moment we're trying to catch big fish, so we want a nice bit of food out there. We're not fishing single hook baits or small beds of bait. Right, let's take a look at the business end that I'm using this week here at Rainbow and what I've been catching my fish on. We'll start right at the bottom end. The presentation I've been using is the snowman presentation. We've got a 20mm and a 60mm pop-up to form that snowman, and that's attached to a size 2 hook, nice and crude compared to what you'd see in England. And then for the hook link we've got 35 Quicksilver, which is knotless knotted to the hook, and then I've got a bit of 0.5 tubing just to form the line, which is how I like my presentations. Now my hook links are around about 12 inches in length, and then that's attached to a lead clip system, and then to the clip we've got a 12-ounce lead, which is really heavy compared to what you'd be using in England, but here we're using boats, and obviously it's a very extreme lake, so you need to hold bottom nice and tight so you can keep that line nice and tight, and so you know that anything's touched the business end, it's going to trigger straight away. So we've got a 12-ouncer there, and then we've got a leader. This is a 55-pound leader, some sea line that I used to use at Lake Reduta, which my old mate Stevie Briggs still uses to this day on Rainbow, so
I've obviously got some of that. So the bottle system then, which we've got here, which is what you're probably wondering what this is all about. Now, this is a system that Stevie Briggs showed me many years ago when he was fishing on Cassian, and the idea behind it is that it keeps your line right up out of the water, and you simply fish it directly above your rig system. And so if you're fishing in 8 foot of water, you sort of set it at about 10 foot, and it sits right up on the surface, and it keeps your line nice and up in the water and away from any obstructions. The way that you fish it is you get an old pop bottle like this. Some people use ping pong balls, etc. And I've attached a little bit of pole elastic to it. Then I've got a loop at the end, one of these loops that comes off an old backlit system. And then all I do is I fish 2 float stops. These are the solar float stops. I simply fish one about a foot or so above the lead system, and then the other one I set around about 2 foot over depth. So if I'm fishing in 8 foot water, I'll simply put the other float stop in about 10 foot, and the idea is then that the lead goes direct, the line from the lead I should say, goes direct right up to the bottle, and then it keeps it all up in the air and away from the obstructions on the bottom. Do. Absolute lump of a fish, just taken at first light from 15 foot and far bank. Really deep fish, this one. We can get a look at it. Good fight as well. There we go. Lovely, lovely big fish. $49.12 to be exact. Lovely big old rainbow mirror for deck on the second morning. So it's our 3rd fish now of the trip, so things are certainly looking good for a full week on here. Lovely, well done deck, cracking fish. Right, so let's take a look at my setup, and all of my rods are on the single leg bank sticks. I'm not using pods here, and the reason for that is that I've got a direct line straight towards where I'm fishing. There's no angles in the line, which obviously will reduce the sensitivity of the setup. And for buzzers I've got the Nash sirens, which I really rate, they're on high sensitivity, and then I've got the tension arm indicators by Solar. All I'm fishing for is a couple of 3 bleeps, because I'm fishing locked up. And if you take a look at this end, the braid's loaded onto these Fox 12,000 FS reels, which I really rate as well. And as you can see, the bait runner's turned off because I'm fishing locked up just for 2 or 3 bleeps, and then I'm straight on the rods. Now the backrest itself, if you take a look here, this is interesting. This is one of these butt grips by Nash which clamp the rod in place, and although they clamp the rod in place, which is perfect for fishing locked up, they also release real easily as soon as I pick the rod up, which is ideal for this kind of fishing. Now the rods I'm using, nice and powerful, 13 foot 3.5 pound, and these are the Nash NRXDs, which I find absolutely perfect for this kind of fishing. I actually find them quite good for small water fishing as well, but for here they're perfect for pulling the fish away from the snags, which is what I need to do in this particular swim. There's no marker floating and spotting at Rainbow Lake. You can do it if you want to, but you won't be as successful as the lads that are using the boats. Everybody gets a boat in every swim,
and the boat just comes supplied with the oars. All the other stuff I need to bring myself. So what I've got here at the back is I've got one of the Eagle Echo sounders. That's one of the portable echo sounders that you can get from the internet for about 150 quid. Transducer's dropped over the back, and it's just run off some standard Duracell batteries, which, you know, will last you weeks and weeks on end. Minn Kota engine. It's got a 55-pound thrust, that has. It's got forwards and backwards on it, which was always useful for going out and playing fish, especially when you've got one of the big fellas on that's pulling one way 1 minute, and then the next minute he's pulling the other way. So that's attached to one of those 12-volt leisure batteries, which you can get from most leisure and camping outlets, about 150 quid, something like that. And then the most important thing to show you here really is the small landing net that I've got. Now, it's one of the solar landing nets. It's on the small pole. You get like two different pole attachments for this net, and the small pole is ideal for boat work. You know, it's always difficult turning round and landing fish with a longer pole, so that's perfect. That's about it for there. That's a look at my setup really. The rest is just all the bivvy stuff, which is just pretty bog standard. I've got one of the Nash 2-man Titan bivvies for this trip. Loads of space in it. It's a bit of a mess in there, but that's me as an angler. Loads of space in it, but ideal for setting up for 2 weeks or a week. And then you've got all this stuff at the back, which is Derek's. Now this stuff is unbelievable. This is how he fishes when he comes to places like this. Bloody unbelievable. This is for preparing all the particles. He's got his gas burner over the back there, so he can prepare the particles all nice and fresh. Obviously there's cooking bits and pieces there as well, and he brings all this lot with him. And there's all the buckets of bait. Amazing setup. I take the piss out of him for setting up like this, but I've been using it all week, so I can't complain.